Okay, let's look at inventory. That's one of the topics, one of the main topics in Chapter 6. The two methods we're going to talk about with this problem, number 6, in Chapter 6, is FIFO and LIFO. FIFO means first in, first out, and LIFO means last in, first out. So when things are sold, the assumption, you either have to make a FIFO assumption or a LIFO assumption. There's other methods, but let's not get into those right now. Let's just focus on FIFO and LIFO. One of the things that I ask you here right off the bat is at October 31st on Halloween, the manager needed to know the store's gross profit. Okay, well, gross profit, the first part of this problem that you need to be able to solve is what is gross profit? Gross profit is sales revenue minus cost of goods sold. So right off the bat, you won't know what to do if you don't know what gross profit is. Gross profit is sales revenue minus cost of goods sold. The sales revenue is pretty easy. It's given to you. It says the store sold 95,000 units for $1,235. So pretty much it tells you what it is, which makes it kind of handy. You don't have to mess with it. So we know that whether you're using FIFO or LIFO, whether you're using first in, first out for what was sold, or last in, first out for what was sold, sales is the same. So we got 95,000 for $1,235. So that takes care of the first line here. Now we get to the fun part, or not fun, depending on how you look at it, and that's how much is the cost of goods sold. Let's do what I think is kind of the easier one of the two first. You notice we used that theme before this semester. The really important thing about getting cost of goods sold correctly is you've got to create the inventory layers, and you've got to recognize what the inventory layers are. Notice that here, any layer begins with the first layer. So ended September 2014, in other words, at the end of September 2014, you had 100,000 units of merchandise that cost $7.20 each. Notice how I've set up my layer here. The beginning balance, 100,000 at $7.20. Notice I'm not calculating. I'm not calculating the amount of the how much this is. That's not really important to this problem. What's important is setting up your layers. So there's layer 1. The second layer comes in October the 8th. 20,000 units were purchased, right? So you started with this many. You added 20,000 units at $6.10 for $122,000. Again, don't focus on this right now. Focus on the units and the cost. 20,000, 610. Notice here, 20,000, 610. Then the last layer that was added in October was on the 22nd. You had 60,000 units at $5.20. So again, 60,000, 520. Okay, so these are the layers that you started with a layer, and then on October the 8th you added a second layer, and on October the 22nd you added a third layer. That's all the layers that exist in this problem. So be good, get good at identifying the different layers. You know, the beginning layer and how many layers were added. So with FIFO, we do first in, first out. That means the first things that were purchased are the first things that are going to be considered sold in the books. Keep in mind, something that's important to keep in mind here is we're not talking about the actual physical movement of inventory items here. You're not like looking for the oldest one in the warehouse and making sure that that's what goes up first, and then after that, the next oldest, and then the next oldest. This is not talking about what you actually do in a warehouse. This is talking about the assumption that your books will have. So your books will have, in this case, a FIFO, a first in, first out assumption. That means that what you want to do is you want to start consuming with FIFO. Let's go and see if I can put it up here. FIFO. With FIFO, you consume layers in this direction. Okay? So FIFO consumes layers and is considered sold in this direction. You notice in this problem it's pretty easy. You sold 95,000, right? So you're looking for cost of goods sold. This is what it was. This is the retail price. This is what it sold for. You want the cost of that 95,000. Again, with FIFO, you drill down from the top down, and you notice that 95,000 will harm or drop this layer down to 5,000, not 100,000 minus 95. There's 95. And we're going to take 95 out of this first layer because FIFO consumes layers downward from the oldest layer to the newest layer. Okay? So this is going to be 95,000 at $7.20. 95 times 7.2 gives you 684. So we come over here to the 684, and gross profit under that assumption would be 684 minus the 1235 is 551. Okay, so this is the assumption. This is what you would have if you were engaging in first in, first out. In other words, first in, first sold out. Okay, that's what we did. We sold 95,000, and you get rid of this old layer because this was the first one in, this was the next one in, and this is the newest one in. So you start with the oldest and move towards the newest. If you had sold 120,000, just to have a nice round number, you would sell, your cost of goods sold would be the 100,000 times the 720, and then the additional 20,000 would add some more at 20,000 at $6.10. So you would drill your way towards your newest layer. That's FIFO. Now LIFO, let me see if I can put it here. It's very similar. LIFO works in this direction. Okay? LIFO works in this direction. Okay? So we sold 95,000, remember? We sold 95,000. So we're going to consume the newest layer first. Notice we're not playing this game of when was this sold, and it just says during October, right? So we're not playing this game of when, was it sold in between here and here, the 8th and the 22nd? Was it sold between the 1st and the 8th? We are just assuming it was sold during October sometime, and it's time to go ahead and start consuming our layers LIFO style. So we're going to consume for sure 60,000 at $5.20. Okay, so we know we're going to for sure consume that. Let's go ahead and calculate that right quick. 60,000 times 5.20 equals 312,000. So let's go ahead and put 312,000. We know that's not cost of goods sold because we sold 95,000, and that's just 60. Okay, so moving up LIFO style, we're going to consume the next layer. That's 20,000 at 610. So let's do 20,000 times 610 is 122,000. Put it here. This is a check mark, although it's a very bad check mark. Okay, this ties to this. This ties to this. Okay, this is still not enough because we consumed 95,000 when we sold, right? 60 and 20 is 80,000, so we still need another 15,000. So what we do using LIFO is we drill into this older layer and consume that. So 80,000, and we need 95,000, which is 15,000 more. 15,000, 60 plus 20 plus 15,000 gives us what we need, the 95,000. 15,000 times 720 is 108,000. Okay, and that's 60 plus 20 is 80. We need another 15, so this is 15,000. Times the 720 here. I'll just put 7.20. Okay, that gives us total cost of goods sold under LIFO. We consumed this fully, we consumed this fully, and we consumed 15,000 units of this at 720. So now we simply take the 108,000 plus the 122 plus the 3112, and that gives us 542. Come over here. You'll notice scratch paper will be important when you're doing these kinds of problems. Come over here, put 542. And then to get gross profit is sales revenue minus cost of goods sold. We take the 1235 minus the 542, and we get 693. Okay, this is how you calculate how much cost of goods sold. Notice this is all about calculating cost of goods sold. Sales revenue is sales revenue, and gross profit is just an equation of sales revenue minus cost of goods sold. Everything here is tied up in how do you calculate cost of goods sold. This is how many units were sold. We're not paying attention to this. This is what it's sold for. This is what the receipts that the customers would get in their hands would have. We sold 95,000. It's just a function of are we drilling down from the top to the bottom, which in this case it was stayed all within the first layer, like FIFO, or are we consuming layers as we get closer and closer to the oldest layer? And that's pretty much how you do FIFO and LIFO. I hope you found this useful.